All praises to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem Rachak double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Shalom, salutations to the hopeful elect that's fighting a good fight of faith and truth, in sincerity and wholeheartedly. Shalom to the Akwath, which is the wind believer. Shalom to you. All praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai. So before I play this video, one thing that I want to say is prophecy have the last say so. You can get into the particulars of everything because everything have to have an action, so to get to a conclusion, you got to have series of actions that lead to that conclusion. So, all of this, the BRICS and, dropping the dollar, all of that is their plan. The difference is that the Lord have his own agenda. So while the leaders of these nations have their own agenda, which is the Lord's agenda, it's called the Lord have hardened their heart. He have hardened their heart. So they feel, okay, cool. This thing called Operation Sandman that you cannot find no more. But back in 2023, I came across something called Operation Sandman that all of these nations was going to drop the dollar at the same time and the dollar was going to crash. If you look up things like if you go look up Iran, Russia, so let's just stick to those two, the ones who are the main enemy of America. They all are working on a digital currency. I wonder why. So you know how the scripture says in Revelation 13:16, he calls of all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, right? So the thing is that the leaders of these nations, you have to understand the leaders of these nations, they don't have to be in a war. They call the shots. So they're not going to be on the front line getting shot, bombs dropped on them. So they love the sound of it going digital. That means more control over people. But this devil wanted all to himself. You're dealing with an Edomite here, okay? So yeah, I just had to put that out there because the scripture says otherwise. We know the conclusion of the matter. Eventually, the dollar is going to crash. Eventually, these nations is going to shoot fire on America. Okay? That's all you need to know. You can get into all the particulars all you want. The conclusion is people are going to be faced with a microchip and America is eventually going to be bombed. That's the conclusion of the matter. Let's play the video now.
What is going to happen to our economy? Not just let's start with the U.S. economy. I mean, what happens if we have pissed off the GCC so bad that they decide they're not going to trade oil in U.S. dollars anymore?
There is a huge.
The GCC stands for the Gulf Cooperation Council, which is the Arab countries that have, contracts, ties with America, basically with the petrodollar. That's the reason that America became big. But this man is about to go into it.
Concern. And again, I don't think a lot of people understand why it's important. And again, you hear this from me over and over. You have to go back and look at the history a little bit. You have to know how we got here. The U.S. used to be on a gold standard. And what does that mean? It meant for every dollar you held, it was backed up by gold, right? Well, we went off the gold standard. So what is the U.S. dollar backed by? It's backed by the belief that the U.S. is good for it.
It's backed by the sword. That's what it's backed by, okay? It's also backed by oil. So when the gold standard came off, the oil standard came in. But then it got worse when the nations wanted wait a minute, because this happened, I think, with France first in the 70s, not that long after, Nixon, basically put it on temporary hold that the gold, that the dollar would be off a gold standard, right? So the France wanted their gold back because all these nations traded in their gold. Then they wanted it back. Again, America said, get it in blood. That's what they said, okay? We don't got no gold, okay? So then the dollar was forced by the sword from now on. Now you got to play ball with America. Now you can get sanctioned. And if you want to, think that you're going to work outside of the dollar, you see what happened to Gaddafi? When he tried to do that, he got killed. And then they always put a puppet leader into that leader's place to do their will. So that's what it is, backed by oil and the sword.
A dollar bill, a $10 bill, $100 bill, whatever, is a promise. It's an IOU that says you're going to give them something back that's worth this much, right? If it's gold backed, that means I'm going to get that amount of gold for this. If it's not gold backed, it just means we all agree that this is how much it's worth. Well, that can change overnight. What if we all agree it's not worth that? And right now we use it to trade oil. Every country trades oil in dollars. There's some talk about why that is. And if you look at the Confessions of an Economic Hitman, he talks about how we signed agreements with Saudi Arabia and others that said they would trade in U.S. dollars. That forced the U.S. dollar to have value because you could trade it with oil and everything else, right? But now countries are a little tired of that.
They're a little tired of it because the Lord is working on the king's heart. Let's get that. And at the same time that the Lord is working on the king's heart, he's also working on the king of Babylon to make him become a tyrant. So it said the king's heart is in the hand of Yahweh, as the rivers of water, he turneth it whatsoever he will. So now the heathen is looking at the worst of the heathen, the top heathen, with the evil eye. Remember when the scripture says that at Babylon, matter of fact, let's get that. The point is at the bottom of that scripture. It said, Babylon have been a golden cup in Yahweh's hand. So everything that this man was talking about, that's when Babylon was the golden cup. Everybody wanted to trade with Babylon. Everybody wanted to make deals with Babylon. All right. Everybody wanted to play with the dollar. This is when Babylon was on top. That have made all the earth drunken. All the earth drunken. The nations have drunk enough for wine. Therefore, the nations are mad. Now they mad now. They realize they've been duped. They realize that they so stuck into this dollar that the Lord got it in their mind to finally wake up. And when you go into this word mad, right? They realize they've been duped. It's halal, which is the same word for praise. But when you read 6, to act madly, to act like a madman. Verse 5, to make a fool of, to make into a fool. These are the things that the Lord is allowing these nations to realize. We've been duped. And we've been duped for the last time. It's time to do away with this whore, as it say in Revelation 17. That's what she is. She's called the whore. The beast shall hate the whore. That's her own allies.
By the way, again, this is all one big spider web. Going back to Libya, Gaddafi wanted to form a new currency for Africa called the unit, right? That would not use U.S. dollars.
You want to know the correlation with that? That's what caused the 9/11 inside job for them to go over there to Iraq. That was the beginning of it, okay? Because The nations back then was trying to get together. Gaddafi was trying to get all the so-called Arab nations to get together to trade outside of the dollar. So that was their excuse to cause a false terrorist attack to go over there to do something. Because when you go do the history, at the time that Gaddafi was trying to create the unit, I think that was 2000, 2001.
That was sacrilege. Couldn't have that. That's another reason we attacked theirs. We couldn't have that. Now, what's the big threat to the U.S.? Dollar. BRICS. BRICS wants to get off.
BRICS is a military and financial alliance. Remember, this is just nothing but prophecy. That's why I say just stick to prophecy and you won't be confused. It said, I have heard a rumor from Yahweh Bashmal Shai, an ambassador is sent unto the heathen, saying, gather ye together, come against her, and rise up to battle. That's these nations coming together. For lo, I will make you small among the heathen and despised among men. That's what's happening. Everybody, like I keep saying, is looking at America with the side eye, with the evil eye. Like, yeah, we got to get this bitch out of here. That's how all these nations looking. No, don't nobody agree with Israel and America warring with Iran right now. Nobody agree with that. Just did a video on that. By how the allies was like, nope, we don't approve of it. France, Italy, Germany, Britain, they don't approve of it. So yeah, you being, made small among the heathen, going to that word small is insignificant.
Off of the U.S. dollar and have their own trading units that is not U.S. based.
Last time I checked, that went from Brazil, Russia, India, China. Now I believe the last time I checked, there was 22 more countries.
Yeah, people are signing on.
Why wouldn't you? I mean, you hear these conversations, that they have to be happening. I mean, China is engaging other countries and literally saying, hey, we don't have to put up with this shit.
They don't have to put up with it no more. All going into prophecy. Joel 3:10. Let the weak say I'm strong. All right. At one point in time, these nations was weak. The Lord been having them preparing for years. This is the main reason why Iran is able to fight Israel and America the way that they are. The Lord been had it in his spirit to be preparing. They also got Russia as an ally, which, give them military equipment. That's their cooperation. One of them. But that's the thing. The Lord have all the chess pieces in place. He is the master chess player and he control all the chess pieces and he move them wherever he wants.
Right. We don't have to. And it's one of those is like, hey, kind of in secret on the side, it's like, let's you and I agree that we don't have to use American dollars.
And that's what's happening. That's what's happening. Okay? Because when you go to Habakkuk 2:5, right? He became proud because of his wine, neither keepeth at home, who is as death and is as hell, follow him and gather unto himself all people. He done that with his dollar. Everybody got to play with him. Everybody got to commit fornication with him. Because he got the power to either bomb you or sanction you. Stop you from your livelihood. Now, they tired. Okay? Going into, he shall mingle himself with the seed of men, but they shall not cleave to one another. That's in Daniel 2:40. I think it's 42. 2:42, but just to make sure. $43. I just wanted this to quote that part because 41 through 43 is just going into how the Edomites in their kingdom, they don't agree. They're strong militarily, weak financially, and they also weak politically. They also weak because they don't agree. And the scripture says the kingdom divided against itself should not stand. But yeah, they should mingle with the seed of men. They should not cleave one another. They don't agree. They don't agree about everything when it comes to, the new system that they're trying to bring forth, because they arguing. That's what the Spirit revealed to the prophets. You know that they arguing about who's going to control the new world to come, who's going to have more control of it. This is you talking about having a microchip in your hand or in your forehead to be in society. Yeah, that's very important. Okay? You already know that Esau Edom was like, yeah, you don't gotta take it. Everybody else gotta take it. No, you're gonna have to take it. The scripture says what it says and it means what it means. When it say cause of all, I don't know what y'all think all mean, but it means all. Okay? So all, only ones who ain't gonna take it is the elect. By your great wisdom and by your traffic has you increased your riches, and your heart is lifted up because of your riches. Let's get into what it's actually saying. Okay? Riches, right? Chayal goes into your strength, your efficiency, your wealth, your army. Okay? So it goes into your army. Because when you go to money, right? The word in the Hebrew is kasap. So this is talking about your army, but it also can go into your money too. But this is particularly talking about your army. All right. So that's why you were so prideful when Israel called you, because you heard little bitch. All right. You heard little. I'm going to keep it PC. All right. But whatever she say goes. When Israel said, yeah, we need you to come over here and, help us with Iran, you thought you was going to go in there and handle things. Didn't come out that way. So, therefore, thus say the Lord Yahweh, because you have set your heart as the heart of the Most High, behold, therefore I will bring strangers upon you, the terrible of the nations. They shall draw their swords against the beauty of your wisdom. They shall defile your brightness. They shall bring you down to the pit. You shall die the death of them that are slain in the midst of the seas. Wilt you say before him that slayeth thee, I am a power? But you shall be a man and no power in the hand of him that slayeth thee. You shall die the death of the uncircumcised by the hand of strangers, for I have spoken it. The Lord spoken it. It's going to come to pass. So that is the end game. Okay. So all the particulars and all of that, at the end of the day, this dollar is going to crash. The nations is going to shoot fire on Babylon the Great.
And as soon as enough of us agree, we'll just stop and we'll switch over to this. But we need enough of us first to make the switch.
And switch over to what? What is the this? Prophecy said it's going to be a digital currency, which is the microchip. Okay.
So right now there's still talk of let's get enough of us so that we can all agree and then do the switch, right? Also, though, you've got a lot of tie-ins with other countries have invested in the U.S. They own buildings, they own land, they own companies, right? So if our economy tanks, their investments tank. Everything is so interconnected.
And that's why it's easy for these nations to agree. Remember, they, like this man just said, a lot of people, but predominantly every nation made ties with these devils, invested with these devils. So it's no point of holding on. That's why I always bring up all the talking points that they was having in the pandemic, like build back better. The 3 B's, right? Which if you do a lowercase b, that's 666. And then what just passed last year? The big, beautiful bill. You go into that. That's just all the things that help people is taken away now. So yeah, it just, everything is leading to what the Lord said. But the video is getting too long and they ain't really talking about nothing else. I'm gonna play a little bit more and I'm gonna end it on the scripture.
it's not just an easy, we're going to pull out, because we're also going to take a hit then. But then these other countries have to look at it and go, which is worse, this hit or the long-term, stability and freedom to do what we want without someone else telling us what to do?
Now, he just said something very important, because that's scripture. Because after these nations hit Babylon the Great, they're going to remember all the glamour and the money and all the glitz that they had. It says, standing afar off of her torment, saying, alas, alas, that great city Babylon, the mighty city, for 1 hour her judgment is come, and the merchants of the earth shall weep and mourn over her, for no man buyeth their merchandise anymore. So this is how you know that the Lord is going to put it in her heart, as I say, the chapter back, Revelation 17:17. He's going to put it in their heart, fulfill his will, to burn her with fire. But when they do it, that's the Lord putting the evil thought in them. But after they do it, they're going to start thinking about, damn, all the money I used to make. Dang. Now, see, this is their thought process, not even understanding that you fulfill the will of the Lord, and now the kingdom of heaven is about to come. So who cares about how you feel about, damn, that was all my money right there. Damn, what great city is like unto this great city, as the scripture says in matter of fact. Yep. Verse 16, it's saying, alas, alas, the great city which was clothed in fine linen, purple and scarlet, decked with gold, precious stones, and pearls. For in 1 hour great riches is come to naught. Every shipmaster and all the company of ships and sailors, and many a trace by sea stood afar off, and cried when they saw the smoke of her burning, saying, what city is like unto this great city? So yeah, they're going to regret it real quick, but at the moment, the Lord going to put it in their heart to do it.
The movement's growing.
The movement's growing, but it doesn't matter, because this is what the Lord have. Matter of fact, this is what the Lord have in store. So I'm gonna end it on this. It said, but the judgment shall sit, and they shall take away his dominion and consume it, to destroy it to the end. Who is they? That's the nations. In the kingdom and dominion, in the greatness of the kingdom under the whole heaven, shall be given to the people of the saints of the Most High, whose kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, and all dominion shall serve and obey him. Okay? So, at the end of the day, this is the will of the Lord. That's the conclusion of the matter. So you can get into the particulars, but the point is that, yes, the economy is going to crash. People are going to be microchipped, and Babylon the Great, which is also known as America, is going to be destroyed. That's the conclusion of the matter. That's why you better seek ye out the Lord while he may be found. And Shalom.